We think we know the Second World War. We see it as a conflict of clear lines and documented certainties. A story told in grainy newsreels, detailed battle plans, and the stark, unambiguous struggle of good against evil. Its history is a vast archive, a library of official records and eyewitness testimonies that seems to have left no page unturned. But this clarity is an illusion. Beneath the grand narrative of armies and empires lies a darker, stranger history, a world of ghost fleets, vanished soldiers, baffling decisions, and unexplained events that refuse to fit neatly into the official record. These are the stories that linger in the margins, the whispers and enigmas that haunt the memory of the world's greatest conflict, moments where the fog of war never truly lifted. In this epic journey, we will explore 20 of the most baffling mysteries of the Second World War. We will move beyond the well-known tales and venture into the deep fog to uncover stories of lost fortunes, phantom submarines, and deadly secrets that have remained unsolved for over 80 years. For each one, we will examine the strange evidence, analyze the competing theories, and understand why they remain such powerful and enduring enigmas. This is a journey into the ghosts of the Great War. Number 20. The Ghost Blimp. Imagine you are a resident of Daly City, California, on the clear, sunny morning of August 16th, 1942. The war in the Pacific is at its height, and the fear of a Japanese attack on the American mainland is a palpable daily anxiety. You look up and see a familiar, reassuring sight, a U.S. Navy L-8 airship, a massive blimp, on its routine anti-submarine patrol. But as you watch, a sense of unease begins to creep in. The airship is drifting inland from the sea, low and erratic, its large envelope sagging as if it has lost pressure. It finally collides with a suburban street, its massive deflated canopy draping over houses and power lines like a dying beast. Emergency crews race to the scene, cutting their way into the control car, fearing the worst. But inside, they find a scene of perfect, eerie normalcy. 2 parachutes were in their proper place. The inflatable life raft was stowed correctly. A confidential briefcase containing secret codes was untouched. The engine still had fuel. The controls were in order, and a microphone was found dangling, as if it had just been used. Everything was there, except for the 2-man crew. The experienced pilot, Lieutenant Ernest DeWitt Cody, and his co-pilot, Ensign Charles Adams, had vanished into thin air. Their last radio message, 2 hours earlier, had been a routine, all clear. They had been seen by civilian boats, flying normally. What happened in those 2 hours? The theories are as strange as the disappearance itself. Did one of the men open the door to investigate something and accidentally fall out, with the other falling in a desperate attempt to save him? This seems unlikely, as the doors were locked from the inside, and the crew wore safety harnesses. Was there a secret, silent struggle with an unknown third party who then parachuted out? But all the parachutes were accounted for. The most enduring mystery is how 2 men could completely disappear from a locked control car, thousands of feet in the air, leaving behind a perfectly operational airship to make its own lonely journey back to land. This is the enduring mystery of the L-8 Ghost Blimp. Number 19. The lost treasure of the Yamashita gold. For years during the Second World War, the Imperial Japanese Army plundered the nations of Southeast Asia with a systematic and ruthless efficiency. This vast operation, codenamed Kin no Yuri or Golden Lily, stripped the treasuries, banks, museums, temples, and private homes of a dozen conquered countries of their wealth. They accumulated a truly colossal hoard of gold bullion, platinum, diamonds, priceless religious artifacts, and irreplaceable works of art. As the war turned against them in 1944, this immense, multi-billion-dollar fortune needed to be hidden from the advancing Allied forces. The task allegedly fell to the Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, who was commanding Japanese forces in the Philippines. According to legend, he He oversaw the construction of a vast and complex network of secret tunnels and underground vaults at more than 175 sites across the islands. Into these vaults, the plundered wealth of a continent was hidden away. When the work was complete, the entrances were dynamited, and the Filipino laborers and Allied prisoners of war who had built them were supposedly sealed inside to protect the secret forever. After the war, Yamashita was tried and executed for war crimes, reputedly taking the location of the treasure to his grave. For decades, treasure hunters from around the world, armed with cryptic maps and the testimony of supposed eyewitnesses, have searched for the hoard. The most famous, a Filipino locksmith named Rogelio Roxas, claimed to have found a portion of it in the 1970s, including a large golden Buddha statue, only to have it seized from him by agents of the Philippine president, Ferdinand Marcos. The ensuing legal battles have only deepened the legend, while mainstream historians remain skeptical, questioning the scale of the hoard. The mystery endures. Is a fabulous, unclaimed fortune still waiting to be found in the jungles of the Philippines? It is a tantalizing mystery of a lost pirate treasure on a national scale, known as the Yamashita Gold. Number 18. The sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Imagine you are a sailor in the US Navy. It is the final, closing days of the war, July 30th, 1945. You have just completed the most secret mission of the entire conflict, delivering the enriched uranium and key components for the atomic bomb, Little Boy, to the island of Tinian. Now, your mission complete. You are sailing unescorted through the Philippine Sea, a sense of relief in the air. Just after midnight, the world erupts. 2 torpedoes from the Japanese submarine I-58 slam into your ship's side. Your vessel, the heavy cruiser USS Indianapolis, lists almost immediately, its communication systems destroyed. It sinks in just 12 terrifying minutes. Around 900 of the 195 crewmen manage to abandon ship and are cast into the vast, dark, unforgiving ocean. But your ordeal has only just begun. For 4 days and 5 nights, you and your shipmates float in the open water, your life jackets waterlogged, clinging to rafts and debris. You battle dehydration under a burning sun, the agony of salt water poisoning, and the delirium of exposure. And then come the sharks. Hundreds of oceanic whitetips, drawn by the sinking, begin a relentless campaign of terror, picking off the dead and the wounded. But the true mystery is not what happened in the water. It is why no one came to help. Due to a series of catastrophic communication blunders, procedural errors, and jurisdictional confusion, your top-secret ship was never reported as overdue. The US Navy did not even know you were missing. Your survival was only due to a routine anti-submarine patrol plane that happened to spot the oil slick and the desperate survivors by sheer chance. Of the 900 who went into the water, only 316 were pulled out alive. The question that has haunted the Navy for decades, leading to the controversial court-martial of the ship's captain, is this: how could a major warship and nearly 1,000 of its men simply be forgotten at sea? Number 17. The Foo Fighters. It is November 1944. You are the pilot of a Beaufighter night fighter, flying a patrol over the Rhine Valley in Germany. Your world is one of darkness, the drone of your engines, and the green glow of your radar screen. As you patrol the black skies, you suddenly see it, a strange, fiery, colored light. Sometimes it's red, sometimes orange, sometimes white. It seems to be following your aircraft, keeping pace with you at incredible speeds, then stopping on a dime, performing maneuvers that defy the known laws of physics. You try to engage it, moving to attack, but it easily outmaneuvers you before vanishing without a trace. You return to base and report the strange sighting, half expecting to be laughed at. Instead, you find that pilots all across the European and Pacific theaters have been reporting the exact same thing. Allied pilots, at a loss for what to call these phenomena, dubbed them Foo Fighters, a name borrowed from a popular comic strip. They were described as small metallic spheres or glowing fiery discs, sometimes appearing alone, sometimes in formation. They would appear suddenly, seemingly toy with Allied aircraft as if they were curious, and then accelerate away at impossible speeds. What were they? The initial fear was that they were a secret German wonder weapon, a new form of remote-controlled drone designed to harass and distract Allied pilots. But they never displayed any hostile action. Scientific explanations were offered. Perhaps they were a rare form of St. Elmo's fire, or another electrostatic phenomenon caused by flying through charged clouds. But this didn't explain their apparently intelligent, controlled movements. Were they simply collective hallucinations, brought on by the immense stress and fatigue of combat flying? The pilots who saw them were adamant that they were real, physical objects under intelligent control. The phenomenon was so widespread and so consistent that it was taken seriously by military intelligence, but no official explanation was ever found. They remain one of the most famous and perplexing mass UFO sightings in history. Number 16. The disappearance of Glenn Miller. He was the sound of the Second World War. His unique big band music, with its signature clarinet-led reed section, was the unmistakable soundtrack for a generation, a symbol of home and hope for millions of American soldiers serving overseas. In 1942, at the absolute height of his fame, the bandleader and trombonist, Major Glenn Miller, volunteered his services to the U.S. Army and was put in charge of the Army Air Force Band, a modern orchestra designed to boost the morale of the troops. On December 15th, 1944, Miller boarded a small, single-engine C-64 Norseman aircraft at an airfield near Bedford, England. He was flying ahead of his band to Paris to make arrangements for them to perform for the troops who had recently liberated the city. The weather was poor, a thick, freezing fog hanging over the English Channel, grounding most other flights. But Miller was determined to get there. The plane took off into the gloom and was never seen or heard from again. No wreckage, no bodies, and no distress call were ever received. The official explanation is that the plane, not equipped for flying in such icy conditions, likely experienced carburetor icing, lost power, and went down in the channel. But the complete lack of any wreckage has fueled countless other theories. One of the most persistent holds that the plane was an accidental victim of friendly fire. After an aborted raid on Germany, a squadron of RAF Lancaster bombers, following procedure, jettisoned their massive payload of bombs over a designated dump zone in the English Channel before landing. It is tragically plausible that Miller's small plane, flying low beneath the fog, strayed into this exact zone at the exact wrong moment. Another, more sinister theory suggests that Miller was involved in a secret intelligence operation to negotiate with disaffected German officers, a mission from which he never returned. The fate of one of the world's most beloved musicians remains a complete mystery. Number 15. The Battle of Los Angeles. Imagine you live in Los Angeles. It is the night of February 24th, 1942. The national mood is one of profound fear and paranoia. It has been less than 3 months since the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, and just the day before, a Japanese submarine had surfaced off the coast of Santa Barbara and shelled an oil field. The West Coast feels like the front line, and the threat of a full-scale Japanese invasion is on everyone's mind. Just after 2 a.m., the air raid sirens begin to wail across the sleeping city. A total blackout is ordered, plunging the sprawling metropolis into an unnerving darkness. Something has been spotted on radar off the coast, and it is heading towards the city. Soon, the night sky erupts in a terrifying pandemonium. The city's powerful anti-aircraft batteries, 37 of them across the LA basin, open fire, pouring over 400 heavy artillery shells into the sky at one or more unidentified, slow-moving objects. Giant searchlights crisscross the darkness, trying to illuminate the target. For over an hour, the city is subjected to a terrifying, one-sided battle against an unseen enemy. The all clear is finally given just after 7 a.m. The battle resulted in the deaths of 5 civilians, 3 in car accidents during the blackout, and 2 from heart attacks induced by the stress of the bombardment. But the central mystery remains. What were they shooting at? The day after the battle, Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox held a press conference and dismissed the entire event as a false alarm caused by war nerves. But many credible eyewitnesses, including journalists from the Los Angeles Times and police officers, swore they saw one or more large silver lozenge-shaped objects in the sky, moving slowly and seeming to hover in the searchlight beams, apparently impervious to the thousands of shells exploding around them. Was it a genuine Japanese reconnaissance flight? A case of mass hysteria fueled by fear? Or, as some have always maintained, something else entirely? This bizarre and chaotic event is known as the Battle of Los Angeles. Number 14. The Amber Room. Imagine a room so opulent, so breathtakingly beautiful, that it was hailed by those who saw it as the 8th wonder of the world. Its walls were not painted or wallpapered. They were constructed from over 6 tons of pure, gleaming amber, the fossilized resin of ancient trees. These amber panels were intricately carved into magnificent mosaics and coats of arms, all backed with gold leaf and giant mirrors designed to catch the candlelight and make the entire room glow with a warm, almost divine, inner fire. Created in the 18th century by German and Russian craftsmen for the King of Prussia, it was later gifted to the Russian Tsar, Peter the Great, as a symbol of the alliance between their two nations. It was installed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, where for nearly 200 years it was the pride of the Russian Tsars. When the German army invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, they closed in on the palace. Curators, realizing the amber was too old and brittle to be dismantled quickly and safely, attempted to hide it behind false walls. But the deception failed. The Germans found the room, expertly disassembled it in just 36 hours, packed it into 27 crates, and shipped it to Königsberg Castle in what was then East Prussia. It was put on display there, a trophy of war. And then, in the final, chaotic days of the war in 1945, as the Soviet Red Army closed in on Königsberg, the Amber Room vanished from history. Did it burn in the fires that consumed the castle during a massive Allied bombing raid in 1944? Was it hastily loaded onto a ship, perhaps the ill-fated Wilhelm Gustloff, that was then sunk by a Soviet submarine in the Baltic Sea? Or was it successfully hidden away by a Nazi official in one of the many secret mines or bunkers across Europe? For decades, treasure hunters have searched for it, but only a few small fragments, like a single stone mosaic, have ever been recovered. The fate of this priceless lost masterpiece of art remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the war. Number 13. The submarine at the bottom of a lake. Lake Lubinka is a remote, deep and chillingly cold body of water located in one of the most desolate and sparsely populated regions on the planet, the Pole of Cold in Yakutia, Siberia. Local legend has long held that it is home to a monster, the Lubinka Devil, a creature that terrorizes the local reindeer herders. But in the 21st century, a far stranger and more modern mystery emerged from its dark, icy depths. In 2013, a team of Russian researchers was conducting a scientific expedition on the lake. While using a sonar scanner to map the lake floor, they discovered a series of bizarre geometric objects on the bottom. Even more strangely, as they analyzed the data, they found what appeared to be the distinct, unmistakable shape of a World War II era submarine, resting silently in the deep water, hundreds of feet below the surface. How could a submarine from the 1940s possibly have gotten into a remote, landlocked Siberian lake thousands of miles from any ocean, in a region with no railways and few roads? The discovery baffled scientists. There are no navigable rivers connecting the lake to the sea. Transporting a submarine overland through such inhospitable, mountainous terrain would have been a monumental, if not impossible, logistical feat during the war. Some have speculated that it could be a secret prototype from a nearby Gulag camp, where prisoners were forced to work on clandestine projects. Others have wondered if it could be part of a secret Lend-Lease transfer between the US and the Soviet Union that was lost in an accident and subsequently covered up. Still others have questioned the sonar readings themselves, suggesting they might be an unusual natural rock formation that only looks like a submarine. But the shape remains stubbornly, recognizably that of a man-made vessel. It is a mystery that defies all logical explanation. Number 12. The secrets of Room 40. Sometimes, the greatest mysteries are not about what was lost, but about what was found, and how. During the First World War, the British Admiralty's brilliant code-breaking section was known simply as Room 40. Its crowning achievement was the deciphering of the Zimmermann telegram, the secret message that helped bring the United States into the war. During the Second World War, its far more famous successor was the Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park, the home of the monumental enigma-breaking operation. But there is a tantalizing mystery that connects them. The success of Bletchley Park in breaking the German Enigma Code was one of the most crucial secrets of the war, an intelligence coup that shortened the conflict by an estimated 2 years. Their success depended on having an Enigma machine to study, and it is well known that the Polish Cipher Bureau provided the British with crucial early breakthroughs and a replica machine. But to read the traffic consistently, Bletchley Park needed a steady supply of daily codebooks and rotor wiring updates. The official story credits this vital intelligence to daring captures of German U-boats at sea, like that of the U-110. But there is a persistent, shadowy rumor of another, deeper source. The rumor states that a secret, back-channel deal was struck. It suggests that the aging spy masters from the original Room 40, men who had broken German naval codes in the First World War, had maintained a secret relationship with their old counterparts in German naval intelligence men, who were patriotic Germans, but who despised Hitler and the Nazi regime. According to this theory, these German officers, likely in the circle of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, secretly provided the British with the vital codebooks they needed, not as an act of treason to their country, but as an act of patriotism to save Germany from the ruin they knew the Nazis would bring upon it. It is a theory that can likely never be proven, a whisper of clandestine cooperation in a world of total war. Number 11. The blood-soaked U-boat. In October 1943, the German U-boat U-537 embarked on a successful secret mission to set up an automated weather station on the coast of Labrador, Canada. But the story of another U-boat on a secret mission is far more mysterious and gruesome. According to a persistent naval legend, a German U-boat was found adrift off the coast of a neutral country, possibly Argentina, several months after the war in Europe had officially ended in May 1945. When it was boarded by naval personnel, they discovered a scene of unimaginable horror. The entire crew was dead, but they had not died of starvation, dehydration, or enemy action. They had apparently killed one another in a sudden, inexplicable frenzy of mutual slaughter. The cramped interior of the submarine was a charnel house, spattered with blood, with bodies found hacked and bludgeoned with wrenches, knives, and any other heavy object the sailors could find. There was no sign of what could have caused such a sudden, violent, and collective madness. Had the crew been driven insane by the immense psychological pressures of a long secret patrol, perhaps on a clandestine mission to transport high-ranking Nazi officials or treasure to South America? Had they been carrying a mysterious cargo, a biological agent, or a powerful experimental psychotropic drug that had leaked and catastrophically affected their minds? Or had they simply succumbed to a deadly, extreme form of cabin fever, where months of tension finally exploded into homicidal rage? With the entire crew dead and no logbook to explain the final, bloody hours, the truth of what happened in the silent, claustrophobic world of that U-boat was lost forever. Number 10. The Caton Forest Massacre cover-up. In the spring of 1943, in the Katyn forest near Smolensk in occupied Russia, German forces made a horrifying discovery. They unearthed a series of mass graves containing the bodies of over 40 Polish military officers. They had all been systematically executed, shot one by one from behind, with a single bullet to the back of the head. Nazi Germany immediately seized upon the discovery for a massive propaganda campaign, claiming it was clear proof of the barbarity of their Soviet enemy. They alleged that the murders had been carried out by the Soviet secret police, the NKVD, in the spring of 1940, when the region was under Soviet control. The Soviet Union, in turn, reacted with performative outrage. They vehemently denied the accusation and countered with their own version of events, blaming the massacre on the invading German army. They claimed the Nazis had captured the Polish officers in 1941 and had murdered them then. For the Allied powers, Britain and the United States, this created a terrible dilemma. Their own intelligence, including coded German messages they had intercepted, strongly suggested the Soviets were responsible. But Joseph Stalin was their most crucial ally in the war against Hitler. To publicly acknowledge Soviet guilt would mean siding with Nazi propaganda and fracturing the fragile Grand Alliance at the most critical phase of the war. And so, for the sake of victory, a terrible political decision was made. The Allies chose to publicly support the Soviet version of events, suppressing evidence to the contrary and pressuring the Polish government in exile to drop their demands for an independent investigation. The central mystery is not who committed the massacre after the fall of the Soviet Union. Russia officially acknowledged in 1990 that the NKVD was responsible, having executed over 22 Polish officers and intellectuals in total. The enduring mystery is the full extent of the Allied cover-up. How much did Churchill and Roosevelt know? What specific evidence did they bury? And what moral compromises did they make in the name of victory? Number 9. The vanishing of Flight 19. On the afternoon of December 5th, 1945, just a few months after the end of the war, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It was a routine overwater navigation training exercise known as Navigation Problem Number 1. The flight, designated Flight 19, was led by an experienced flight instructor, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, and the other 13 airmen were all qualified pilots or trainees. The weather was clear. The mission was simple. About an hour and a half into the flight, the tower received a disturbing radio transmission. It was Lieutenant Taylor. He sounded confused, agitated. He reported that both of his compasses were malfunctioning and that he was lost. In a series of increasingly garbled and panicked radio transmissions between the pilots, it became clear that they were utterly disoriented. Taylor seemed to believe they were somewhere over the Florida Keys, but some of his trainee pilots thought they were over the Bahamas. As the afternoon wore on, the weather began to worsen and darkness fell. The final transmission from the flight was faint and confused. Then there was only silence. The Navy immediately launched one of the largest air and sea searches in its history. In a bizarre and tragic twist, a PBM Mariner flying boat with a crew of 13 was sent out that same evening as part of the search operation. It, too, vanished without a trace. The crew of a nearby tanker reported seeing a massive explosion in the sky at the exact time and location the Mariner would have been, leading to the belief it suffered a catastrophic fuel vapor explosion in mid-air. But of Flight 19 itself, no wreckage, no oil slick, and no bodies were ever found. The Navy's official report blamed the incident on the flight leader's error, but the sheer completeness of the disappearance of 6 aircraft and 27 men has made Flight 19 the foundational mystery of the region that would become known as the Bermuda Triangle. Number 8. The Rudolf Hess Affair. On the night of May 10th, 1941, one of the most powerful and trusted men in Nazi Germany, Rudolf Hess, the Deputy Führer, a man who had been with Hitler from the earliest days of the Nazi Party and had transcribed Mein Kampf, climbed into a specially prepared Messerschmitt Bf 110 fighter plane. He took off from an airfield near Munich and, under the cover of darkness, flew a dangerous, solo mission across the North Sea to Scotland. He parachuted out of his plane over Renfrewshire and was promptly captured by a surprised local farmer armed with a pitchfork. Hess claimed he was on a mission of humanity. He had come, he said, to negotiate a peace treaty between Germany and Great Britain, believing that the Duke of Hamilton, a Scottish nobleman he had arranged to meet, could broker a deal directly with King George VI. The British government was stunned. The official line, promoted by both the enraged Hitler and the baffled British, was that Hess was mentally unstable and had acted completely alone, a deluded madman on a bizarre personal quest. But has this explanation ever truly satisfied historians? The central mystery is whether Hess truly did act alone. Was his flight secretly sanctioned by Hitler? A genuine, last-ditch attempt to make peace with Britain and secure Germany's Western Front before launching the massive invasion of the Soviet Union just a few weeks later? Or was Hess lured to Scotland by a sophisticated British intelligence operation, a honey trap designed to extract secrets from a high-ranking Nazi official by playing on his known obsession with astrology and back-channel diplomacy? Hess himself was held in strict captivity for the rest of his life, dying in Spandau prison in Berlin in 1987. He took the true story of his bizarre, lone flight to the grave. Number 7. The Final Secret of the U-515. By 1944, the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic had turned decisively against the German U-boats. On April 9th, the German submarine U-515, commanded by the decorated ace Werner Henke, was caught on the surface by a massive American hunter-killer group off the coast of Madeira. What followed was not a battle, but a relentless, 3-hour execution. The submarine was bombed by Avenger aircraft from the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal and depth charged by multiple destroyers, including the USS Pope and USS Pillsbury. The Americans hammered the U-boat with Hedgehog anti-submarine mortars, until finally, mortally wounded and unable to stay submerged, the submarine surfaced. As shells from the destroyers rained down on the conning tower, the surviving German crew scrambled to abandon ship. But as the submarine began its final, gurgling plunge, stern first into the Atlantic, American sailors on the decks of their destroyers witnessed something inexplicable. They reported seeing several members of the U-boat crew deliberately turn around and re-enter the conning tower of the sinking vessel, choosing to go down with their ship when they could have easily been saved. Why would they do this? Suicide in the face of capture was not unheard of, but this seemed different, more deliberate. The U-515 was rumored to be a special transport submarine. This has led to persistent speculation that the submarine was carrying a secret and incredibly valuable cargo, perhaps gold from European banks, secret documents detailing advanced weapons technology, or even, as some have theorized, enriched uranium for a clandestine Japanese nuclear program. According to this theory, the crew members who went down with the ship were under strict orders to ensure that this cargo, whatever it was never recovered by the Allies. Their final act was one not of despair, but of ultimate, defiant sacrifice to protect a final secret. Number 6. The Man Who Never Was. In April 1943, the body of a man washed ashore on a beach near Huelva, in southern Spain. He was dressed in the uniform of a British Royal Marines major, and chained to his wrist was a black briefcase. Inside was a treasure trove of what appeared to be top-secret personal letters and official military documents. The documents detailed an upcoming Allied invasion of Europe, but they pointed to the wrong targets. They were an elaborate deception, designed to make the Germans believe the Allies were planning to invade Greece and Sardinia. The body was discovered by the Spanish authorities, who were officially neutral, but known to be sympathetic to the Axis powers. As British intelligence had meticulously planned, the contents of the briefcase were soon passed on to German agents. The German High Command, completely fooled by the ruse, swallowed the bait whole. They diverted huge numbers of troops, panzer divisions, and ships to Greece, fatally weakening their position at the true Allied target, Sicily. The subsequent invasion of Sicily was a major success, significantly shortening the Italian campaign, thanks in large part to this brilliant deception. The operation, codenamed Operation Mincemeat, was one of the most successful and imaginative intelligence coups of the entire war. But there is an enduring mystery at its heart. Who was the man whose corpse they used? For years, his identity was a closely guarded secret. The official story, released decades later, is that it was the body of Glyndwr Michael, a homeless Welsh man who had died from ingesting rat poison. But some researchers and historians have questioned this, suggesting the state of the body, as described in Spanish autopsy reports, was not consistent with this cause of death, or with prolonged immersion in water. Was the man who never was really a homeless vagrant whose family could not be found? Or was he someone else whose identity had to be protected at all costs? Perhaps a sailor who had died in the tragic sinking of the submarine HMS Dasher a month earlier. The true identity of the man who fooled Hitler remains a subject of intense and fascinating debate. Number 5. The Subhas Chandra Bose disappearance. He was one of the most charismatic, complex, and controversial figures of the Indian independence movement. Subhas Chandra Bose, unlike Gandhi or Nehru, did not believe in non-violent resistance. He believed that India's freedom could only be won through military force, and he famously declared, "Give me blood, and I shall give you freedom." During World War II, he pursued a strategy of, "My enemy's enemy is my friend," and he traveled to Nazi Germany and then Imperial Japan to seek their help in overthrowing the British Raj. He formed the Indian National Army, composed largely of Indian prisoners of war captured by the Japanese, to fight alongside them against the British in Burma. As the war ended with Japan's surrender in August 1945, Bose was a wanted man, a collaborator in the eyes of the victorious Allies. On August 18, 1945, he boarded a Japanese bomber plane in Taiwan, reportedly heading for Dalian in Manchuria, with the ultimate goal of reaching the Soviet Union to seek a new patron for his cause. According to the official account, the plane suffered a mechanical failure and crashed on takeoff. Bose was said to have been badly burned when his fuel-soaked clothes caught fire, and he died in a Japanese military hospital a few hours later. His body was cremated, and his ashes are now enshrined in the Renkoji Temple in Tokyo. But many in India have never believed this story. No photographs were ever released of his body, his injuries, or his cremation. The death certificate was inconsistent. Key witnesses gave conflicting accounts. Many believe that the plane crash was a fabrication, a brilliant ruse designed to allow the great nationalist leader to escape capture by the Allies and go into hiding, perhaps in the Soviet Union, or as a reclusive Hindu holy man in India. For decades, the Indian government has been forced to convene multiple inquiry commissions to investigate the matter. But the mystery of what truly happened to Subhas Chandra Bose has never been definitively solved. Number 4. The fall of Singapore. On February 15th, 1942, the British military suffered what Winston Churchill called the worst disaster and largest capitulation in British history. The supposedly impregnable island fortress of Singapore, the cornerstone of British power and prestige in Southeast Asia, surrendered to a numerically inferior, exhausted, and overextended Japanese force. The British and Commonwealth forces defending the island numbered around 85,000 troops. The invading Japanese force, led by General Tomoyuki Yamashita, was only about 36,000 strong, and was at the absolute end of a long, tenuous supply line, critically short on ammunition, fuel, and food. Yet, the British commander, Lieutenant General Arthur Percival, surrendered unconditionally. The central mystery is why, Why did a much larger defending force, fighting on its home ground, in a fortress that was supposed to be a bastion of the British Empire, capitulate to a smaller, exhausted enemy? The British strategy had always assumed an attack from the sea, and the fortress's famous large naval guns were pointed south to repel a naval invasion. They were largely useless against the Japanese land-based attack, which came from the north, through the impassable jungles of the Malay Peninsula. Even so, Percival's forces still held a massive numerical advantage. The official explanation cites a collapse of morale, chaotic command and control, and, crucially, a failure of the city's water supply after the Japanese captured the reservoirs. But many historians now believe the deciding factor was a colossal bluff by General Yamashita. Knowing his own forces were on the verge of collapse and could not sustain a prolonged battle, he demanded an unconditional surrender, confidently telling Percival he had him outnumbered and would show no mercy to the city's civilian population if forced to take it by storm. Percival, believing the Japanese force to be much larger than it was and fearing a horrific bloodbath, acquiesced. Was it a catastrophic failure of military intelligence, a crisis of command, or was Percival's decision a tragic, but perhaps understandable, choice to save civilian lives? The reasons for the stunningly swift fall of Singapore are still debated. Number 3. The secret of Die Glocke. Deep within the realm of wartime myths, conspiracy theories, and speculative history lies the story of a secret project so strange, so advanced, it sounds like it was pulled from the pages of a science fiction novel. It is the legend of Die Glocke, or the Bell. According to the claims of a Polish journalist and historian, Igor Witkowski, who said he discovered records of the project in post-war Polish government documents he accessed from a Polish intelligence contact. Die Glocke was a top-secret Nazi wonder weapon being developed at a hidden facility in a mine near the Czech border. The device was described as being made of a heavy, hard metal, roughly 9 feet wide and 12 to 15 feet high, shaped like a large, ornate bell. When activated, it was said to use 2 rapidly counter-rotating cylinders filled with a violet, mercury-like substance code named Zerum 525. The device reputedly consumed massive amounts of electrical power and emitted a powerful, deadly field of radiation that would cause strange crystalline gels to form on the bodies of any plants, animals, or human test subjects exposed to it, leading to their deaths. What was its purpose? Theories range from it being part of an anti-gravity or free energy experiment to a time travel machine or a terrifying new type of weapon. The legend is often tied to a strange, Stonehenge-like concrete structure near the site, which believers claim was a test rig for the device. The story concludes that at the end of the war, the device and its chief scientist, the enigmatic SS General Hans Kammler, who was also in charge of Germany's V2 rocket program, and who also mysteriously disappeared, were loaded onto a long-range Junkers 390 aircraft and flown to an unknown destination, possibly a secret Nazi base in Antarctica or South America, and never seen again. While mainstream historians dismiss the story as a hoax or a fantasy, lacking any credible primary evidence, the legend of Die Glocke persists as one of the most outlandish and compelling mysteries of the Nazi quest for a war-winning wonder weapon. Number 2. The treasure of the Merchant Royal. In the summer of 1641, long before the World Wars but within the tapestry of European history, a great English merchant ship was riding at anchor in the port of Cadiz, Spain. The ship, the Merchant Royal, was already heavily laden with treasure from the Spanish colonies in the New World. But while it was in port, another ship in the harbor, a Spanish vessel assigned to carry the payroll for 30 Spanish soldiers fighting in Flanders, caught fire and was destroyed. The captain of the Merchant Royal, seeing an opportunity for immense profit, struck a deal to transport the Spanish treasure as well. His ship, now one of the most richly laden treasure vessels in history, set sail for England. It was carrying, among other things, at least 100 0 pounds of gold, 400 bars of Mexican silver, and nearly 500,000 pieces of 8 and other valuable coins. But the Merchant Royal was an old and leaky ship. On its voyage home, it began to take on more and more water. The pumps could not keep up. On September 23rd, 1641, it foundered and sank in heavy weather off Land's End, the southwestern tip of England. Its immense treasure, a fortune that would be worth well over $1 billion today, went down with it, along with 18 of its crew. The mystery is not what happened to the ship, but where it is. For over 350 years, treasure hunters have searched for the wreck. The general location of the sinking is known from the testimony of the survivors, but the powerful currents, treacherous waters, and shifting sands of the English Channel have kept its exact location a secret. The search has been filled with false hope. In 2007, a salvage company discovered a wreck containing hundreds of thousands of silver and gold coins, which was initially believed to be the Merchant Royal, but was later identified as a Spanish frigate. It is the richest known shipwreck in British waters, a galleon of gold that still lies waiting to be discovered somewhere in the cold, dark waters off the coast of Cornwall. Number 1. The identity of the Angel of Mons. It is August 1914, the opening weeks of the First World War. The vastly outnumbered British Expeditionary Force is in full, desperate retreat after its first, brutal clash with the advancing German army at the Battle of Mons in Belgium. The British soldiers are exhausted, demoralized, and on the verge of being annihilated. As they fall back, fighting a desperate rearguard action, a strange and powerful story begins to spread like wildfire among the troops. It is a story of a miraculous, divine intervention. Some soldiers claim to have seen the ghost of St. George himself, leading a phantom army of English longbowmen from the time of the Battle of Agincourt, who drew their bows and shielded the retreating British forces from the German advance. Others, in a different part of the line, reported seeing a strange, luminous cloud that settled between the two armies, from which emerged towering, angelic figures with wings who beat back the German attack. The story was first published in a fictional piece called The Bowman by the Welsh author Arthur Machen. But his story, intended as fiction, was seized upon by a public desperate for a sign of hope. It was quickly picked up by parish magazines and the national press and spread throughout Britain as a true story, a powerful tale of divine favor and patriotic destiny that boosted morale at one of the darkest moments of the war. But the mystery is, what did the soldiers actually see? Was it a collective hallucination, born of the extreme stress, trauma, and exhaustion of battle? Was it a genuine, unexplained, supernatural event? Or was it simply a piece of fiction that was so powerful and so timely that thousands of soldiers and civilians willed it to be true, adopting it as their own experience? The legend became a cultural phenomenon, a story that blurred the lines between folklore, propaganda, and personal testimony. It is the mystery of the Angels of Mons.